Hey, hi, howdy. This is a movie poster. Looks good, normal, might even ask it out. But there's a problem here. I see some faces, a cool background, but I have no idea what to refer to this movie as. And I can't just call it the floaty head people movie, because there were like 7 of those made yesterday. So whatever will I do? Wait, looks like there's something being covered at the bottom. Oh, that makes more sense, yeah. Movie titles. Something usually seen as a jumble of letters I see is worth discussing for some reason. Don't know why, but I've always found movie titles fascinating. Like, they're cool to me. Somebody, or usually multiple somebodies, had to rack their brains for days on end just to end up calling it Garfield: A Tale of Two Kitties. But who cares about that? Movies are cool and all, but most of them are one and dones. They're gone before you even watch it. Who cares at that point? At least, that's the mentality that most studios have nowadays. We're living in the age of the cash grab, the sequel, the remake, the reboot. So why not talk about those titles? The ones that pertain to extensions of the franchise. Look, I don't want to drag this on, so let's talk about some sequel titles and why they're stupid. That's what they are. When it comes to sequels, you have the basic number 2. It's fine, does the job, but it's boring if we're being entirely honest with each other. I don't like Iron Man 2, there's only one of him. So, let's spice it up. Chapter 2, Volume 2, Episode 2, Part 2, if you will. Tons of movies try to make the basic 2 more interesting, which can get kind of fun. A little chapter never hurt anybody, although sometimes I do think the basic number can be better. It's better than when they try to spell it out for some reason. We have never and probably will never get an answer as to why Happy Feet 2 is spelled the way it is, and that makes me very, very upset. Why can't more movies be like Fast and Furious? Please don't be like Fast and Furious. Okay, so for some context, I've never actually seen a Fast and Furious movie, so maybe these titles make sense to the die-hard fans, but not to me. Alright, so the original movie isn't even called Fast and Furious. They thought that title was missing 2 sets of the same 3 letters and instead called it The Fast and The Furious. You a fan? No? Me neither. Let's keep going. The sequel is Too Fast, Too Furious, which is so stupid, but I kinda love it so it can stay. The third one ditches numbers, calling itself The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, so now we have a subtitle. Wonderful. And the fourth one, that one is called Fast and Furious. Of course, not to confuse it with The Fast and the Furious, that's a separate movie, ya dummy. Then the 5th one is called Fast 5, but the 5 is spelled out for some reason. Great. The 6th one goes back to normal numbers, but uses the 4th movie's title. The 7th one is just called Furious 7, because I guess it was too good for being fast. The 8th one is allergic to numbers and calls itself The Fate of the Furious, which is hilarious to someone who hasn't seen it, because it sounds like the movie is gonna be what happens to a really angry guy. There's a spin-off called Hobbs and Shaw, which makes me think of Calvin. Fast and Furious 9 is just called fucking F9, I mean, sure, why not, right? And the 10th movie, not including Hobby Shobby over there, is called Fast X, which means that there are 2 movies in this franchise, each called Fast and Furious individually. Aside from the fact that there's over 10 fucking movies in this franchise, these titles drive me mad. Some of them are excusable, like Too Fast, Too Furious, or no, that's all the good ones. The worst one has to be F9. I mean, they didn't even fucking bother with words. Instead, they used a math problem for the title. How great. And hey, if we want to talk the big franchises, we can always bring up Star Wars. Oh, good old Star Wars. How reliable it is with its extremely simple titling scheme. I mean, every movie is numbered. How nice of them. The first one is 1, the second one is 2. Just how it should be, except nope! Fuck you! The first movie is episode 4, and the prequel is episode 1. Look, I get it. I understand. Calling the prequels 4, 5, and 6 would probably have been more confusing. which is why I don't think they should have been numbered. Hell, I don't think any of them should have been numbered. The original trilogy wasn't, so why change it? I really don't like that they changed the original movie's title from Good Basic Star Wars to Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. It sounds clunky and stupid. What was the issue with leaving it at Star Wars? Fuck! Man, I hate when the original movie has a subtitle. Makes it feel awkward. Like, you're the original, the first go-around. You don't need a subtitle. Who are you trying to stand out from? There's nobody here. Hey, Jack Sparrow, I don't need to know about your Black Pearl before the movie started. And the other Star Wars movies also had their titles changed. Empire Strikes Back got Star Wars Episode 5 tacked in front of it. Same with Return of the Jedi, but with a nice little number 6. I do find it interesting that while the posters of these movies have the Star Wars logo on them, the official titles, or the original official titles anyway, are just called Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. No mention of the franchise in there. They know you know what these are, and they're proud of it, goddammit. Indiana Jones did something kinda similar. The first one wasn't called Indiana Jones, and it still isn't. Star Wars could take some fucking notes. It's just called Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is nice. I actually like it. The rest of them are called Indiana Jones, which I guess is more unique than the Raiders series, but I don't know. Raiders just kinda has a nice ring to it. Now, the animated side of things, what about Wreck-It Ralph? Not the first movie, that one's more perfect than this world itself. No, I mean the second one. Ralph Breaks the Internet. Come on, they even make a joke in the movie about how it should have been called Ralph Wrecks the Internet. They knew it would be better. They are teasing me. Maybe if they changed the title, the movie would finally have one good thing about it. And don't get me started on the Holland Spider-Man's okay. Homecoming was a nice name. I'm fine with them all having home in the title, but Far From Home and No Way Home always confuse me. I always get them confused with each other, mainly because they're both 3-syllable titles that end in home. Maybe it's just a me thing, but I wish that they made them more distinct. Speaking of Spider-Man, I actually find it very interesting that Across the Spider-Verse was going to be called Part 1, and Beyond the Spider-Verse was just going to be called Across the Spider-Verse Part 2. I don't know if that would have been better or worse. I saw a lot of people complaining that Spider-Verse was left on a cliffhanger, so maybe calling it Part 1 would have been better for those people. You know what? Spider-Man isn't the only superhero to have it rough. When a character has enough iterations and reboots to fill a landfill, you're gonna run into some goofy titles. Batman! What else are you gonna call a Batman movie? For a while they slapped some subtitles on the sequels and reboots until we got Batman Begins. And hey, that's a great title. But then, The Dark Knight came along. And again, great title. But the sequel is called The Dark Knight Rises. So this one trilogy has Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. Why didn't they call the first one The Dark Knight Begins? It would have been so much better than having two movies that look closer than the most in love of soulmates and their awkward third wheel who thinks he's a part of the party. And the best part is, that's not even the worst Batman title. That's just more of something not fitting in with the rest of the trilogy, but Fast and Furious can tell you more about that. What about The Batman? No, Dad, that movie is from 1989. This is The Batman. Genuinely not a fan of tacking on the instead of making a title that, you know, sounds good. I get he's called The Batman a lot, but it's so damn similar to the original movie's title. I personally think an infinitely better Batman title would be The Caped Crusader, following in the footsteps of Man of Steel and even The Dark Knight. But hey, what do I know? Actually, I'll answer my own question. I know that when making another Suicide Squad movie, you shouldn't call it The Suicide Squad. Give it a subtitle, please. I don't care what it is. You could have called it Suicide Squad Harley Fucks Him Up, and it would have been a much better title than the last one with two consonants and their vowel friend shoved in front. And what do you do about the really big franchises that come out with movies just because they need to? Pokémon used to have a new movie every single year, which was cool, reminded me what year it was. But these movies aren't really sequels to each other, they're all just part of the same franchise. So because of this, numbering wouldn't make any sense. These movies aren't continuations of each other, they're basically just longer episodes of the show with higher stakes. So obviously, they don't use numbers. Except for when they did. Yeah, at the beginning, they tried that. Here we have Pokemon 3. Does it have anything to do with the previous 2? No. They obviously learned not to number them pretty early on, because once we reached 5, they stopped. But that was not before they tried being cute about it. Look at this! Pokemon Forever. It's like forever, but the 4th one. Fun, but still unnecessary. Can't keep that up forever. Imagine trying to come up with a pun for 22. So nowadays, they have their own subtitle, but that does make them all blend in, and that's the problem. A lot of Pokemon movies blend in because they all need a unique subtitle. It's hard to keep track of. This is where games have movies beat. Games like Madden or Just Dance just have the year in the title. It makes it infinitely easier to follow. But movies can't do that. So instead we need a new jumble of 2 or 3 words every time we get a new Pokemon. Except of course, you know, when they tried it. Okay, look, I get it. Lots of complaining recently, so let's try and find some good sequel titles, huh? Sound good? Great, cool. Shrek Forever After. The 4th one. Don't know if it was intentional or not, but Forever After? Come on, it had to have been intentional. It's too perfect. Something more recent? Sure, Beetlejuice 2 was rumored for a good while, but when it was finally revealed, it had the perfect name. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. How genius is that? Just like the movie. Then you have one of my favorite titling formats ever. So you've got yourself an alien. And now, you have aliens. I love this so much. Twister? Nah, fuck you. Twisters. There we go. One predator wasn't enough, because now we got predators. I don't know how many examples there are like this, but when I see it, I love it. It's hilarious to me. Not in a bad way. I genuinely love when they make the previous title plural. It's such a fun way to title something. Why can't every title be structured like this? Ghostbusters 2016. It's just called Ghostbusters, but it's not. It's sometimes referred to as Ghostbusters Answer the Call, which is a much better name. Why call it Ghostbusters? If it was a straight remake, I'd get it, but it's not. It's a reboot. This is something different to normal Ghostbusters, so call it something different. Same with RoboCop. Of course, this movie is described as a remake, but in my personal opinion, a remake sticks close to the original with a similar story, which this one does not have. Adding fucking something to the title, a subtitle, anything would have made it better. But no, it's just RoboCop. Fuck you, the last one didn't happen. Again, games are better in this regard. Final Fantasy VII Remake. They don't even try to bullshit you with that one. It's not just called Final Fantasy VII, praying you don't remember the original even happened. It explicitly tells you that this is old shit. I can only imagine if movies did the same. Spider-Man did well with the reboot stuff at least. Amazing Spider-Man is great. It's distinct enough from the originals, and it still fits the brand. I feel like it's more understandable with a remake for it to share the same name as the original, but reboots piss me off. No, this isn't Hellboy! We already had that! At this point, you're probably wondering something. What's the point of any of this? Titles aren't that important. Why am I rambling on and on about 1 or 2 words describing something that you think about once and never again? And to that I say, I disagree with that take. Titles are important. They describe your favorite movies, books, games, songs, everything. Without titles, you'd be referring to Pulp Fiction as the movie with the funny dance in it, which can mean a good handful of different movies. Titles make a movie what they are, and they're important. Now, does this matter to the average person? Absolutely fucking not. Nobody stays up at night thinking that there are 3 movies called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's all pretty superfluous. If someone's talking about the original, they'll mention it. If someone's talking about the 2003 one, they'll say it's the remake. If somebody's talking about the 2022 one, they'll be in prison. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if a title doesn't match the movie in some way, it doesn't matter. You already watched it. You know the distinctions between the Aladdin movies. You don't need the title to hold your hand and tell you which one is different. Now, Why did I spend all this time talking about them, specifically after I just pointed out that they don't really mean much to the average movie fan? Well,